Once upon a time, a man named Carl Stokes had an idea. Not a smart or good idea by any measure of morals. But Carl Stokes is not a man of virtue, and as such this terrible, terrible idea formed into a terrible, terrible plan. A plan that this man would put into action. Carl Stokes is stupid. Incredibly, criminally, and abysmally stupid. You see, when Carl Stokes looked at those weird initials that sometimes prefaced or followed a person's name on a letter, things like Doctor or BSc, our simple friend Carl Stokes had simply no idea what those things meant. They were just random letters, initials, meaningless brags that meant not a thing to a man as simple as Carl Stokes. And as such, Carl decided that he would be Carl Stokes Fire Eng, FPA, even though no such fire engineering qualification exists. He said he was an IFE assessor, auditor, FSO, giving the impression that he was a member of the Institute of Fire Engineers, which he wasn't. He also wrote NEBOSH, FIA BS 5839 System Designer and Competent Engineer BS 5266. Somehow, through layers of ineptitude and incompetence, these meaningless claims and falsehoods enabled Carl Stokes to acquire the role of consultant fire assessor with Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation. Why these easily fact-checked lies and deceptions were not immediately caught, why this man ever got this job, and how he was able to hold it for a number of years until inevitable disaster struck, is yet to be revealed. But the facts are that this man has bloodied hands, stained red by the innocent lives his arrogance and deceit ripped from this world. At 1 on the 14th of June 2017, a malfunctioning fridge freezer started a fire, starting on the 4th story of an, at the time, unknown block of West London flats. Soon this fire would turn into one of the most horrific, devastating, and upsettingly preventable accidents in British history. As the fire spread, rapidly turning into a demonic blaze, fed by unsafe building cladding that seemed designed to act as a fuel source, it ripped through a building unequipped with suitable ventilation or irrigation systems, and as morning broke, our nation would awaken to learn and never forget the name of Grenfell Tower. Overnight, more than 200 people lost their homes, and our useless government left them stranded and abandoned and without aid or suitable housing or anything for months. The damage to these families' mental health and well-being cannot be overstated. If some of them never recover from this, is there any surprise? More than 70 people injured, burned, limbs broken, damaged, lungs, eyes ripped to shreds by toxic, deadly gases and fumes and fire. These physical injuries are still healing 4 years later for many of them. And in that building, 72 people died. It took months for the toll of this traumatic event to be fully understood. And even now, almost 4 years later, we are still learning the fucked up truths behind why, at 1 on the 14th of June 2017, 72 people had to die. Good evening, good morning, and good day. And thank you so much for once again choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me. Let's talk about postnominals. Postnominals, or those initials that you sometimes see on a letter or a CV, well, they matter. And as history has shown time and time again, when these things we call postnominals are misused, innocent people end up paying the price with their lives. As such, in the UK and Europe and America and many other countries around the world, a lot of these postnominals and the terms and qualifications they represent are actually protected by law. However, far more are not. And as such, they can be used, misused, abused, thus putting everyone at risk. The risk of simply being lied to and manipulated by not very good people. Lots of these bad people aren't necessarily evil. They're just greedy and stupid a lot of the time. Carl Stokes is a wonderful example. He probably thought he was doing a good job. The bloke seems genuinely quite thick. Dunning-Kruger in full display. However, he's also certainly incredibly greedy. He was paid £250,000 for those mere 7 years of work that included approving the cladding, put on Grenfell Tower, lying on his risk assessments, copying and pasting risk assessments for other buildings, and more. Okay, maybe Carl's a little bit evil. It's because of this that here in the UK, it is illegal to call yourself a doctor whilst working in any kind of medical field unless you hold a valid medical doctorate. Someone who studied ontological philosophy, even to the point of writing a thesis and achieving a PhD and becoming a doctor of philosophy, should never, ever, ever use that title of doctor if, say they now work in the field of mental health and psychology. Doing so is considered misleading. You can't go around calling yourself Dr. Sinuson, writing books on psychology under that title, and even practicing as a consultant for mental health teams around the nation when you hold a doctorate in philosophy. That's definitely illegal. Dr. Jordan Peterson is another wonderful example. A clinical research psychologist, the man is a phenomenally gifted mathematician and analyst. However, people see him as Dr. Peterson, psychologist, but ignore those two words, the clinical research part of that title, something that actually matters quite a bit, but, at least he's not calling himself a mental health expert. Fuck Jordan Peterson. Anyway, whilst misleading people can be a crime, it certainly isn't always, and while some titles and terms are protected, a lot more aren't. So if you call yourself a doctor, a barrister, a chartered psychologist, and you perform paid work using these titles whilst not actually holding the required credentials, you're not just going to be sued, you're going to be facing criminal charges. That is a criminal offence. But what if I said I was a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a mental health expert, educator, or advocate? Surely those words mean something, right? No, they don't. They mean fuck all. There is a list that I will link to of every protected title in the UK. Some of these also apply to the European Economic Area, those being the titles that hold, in general, the most power, and as such could do the most damage: architect, doctor, barrister, and a few others. A confusing aspect of this list is seeing which terms are protected in the UK as a whole and which are only protected in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, something that for us as everyday people further adds to the confusing, obfuscating nature that enables the misuse of postnominals. And yes, Americans, your situation is the exact same, being further complicated by state-to-state differences. In some states, a psychotherapist might be required to be as qualified as a surgeon. Meanwhile, here in the UK, well, I can start calling myself that today. I can sell a service using that title, provide treatment to people and take their money and run, and not really be breaking any laws. Hope this doesn't give anyone we know any ideas. Another fun one is psychologist. Yep, I'm a professional psychologist now. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word professional, when used as an adjective relating to or belonging to a profession, can be used such as young professional people, or engaged in a specific activity as one's main paid occupation rather than as a pastime, ergo a professional boxer. Synonyms include paid, salaried, or employed. And if we look at the word psychology, the scientific study of the human mind and its functions, especially those affecting behaviour in a given context. Well, guess what, loungers? You guys have actually paid me for some of the work I've done on this channel. In particular, I gained a whole load of people on my now long defunct Subscribestar, mostly off the back of my dissociated work. Those videos, well, what were they if not the scientific study of the human mind and its functions? Yeah, I know I'm playing a little fast and loose with these words and their definitions, but that's the fucking point. You can. On a CV, over an email, on a video, on a website. There's a lot of shit that you can say, and you can say it and write it and do it with the comfort of knowing that you're not breaking any laws. There will be zero legal ramifications, and that should terrify you. It's only if or when you make the dumbass mistake of using postnominal sets of initials that have been protected, be that via statutory laws or governing bodies such as the BACP or MICE, that you'll be in trouble. Yeah, that's a fun one, actually. I can call myself Mr. Peter Grandad, professional psychotherapist, BSK, MTP, and end up getting a job working for the NHS as a counsellor and be breaking no laws. By the way, BSK, MTP, that's bullshit king and master of theoretical psychology. But I could, and most likely would be sued, and if anything went really wrong, face severe criminal charges if I tried to work on a building site as a day labourer, but called myself Mr. Peter Grandad, MICE, because that set of postnominals, mice, has been protected by ICE. Americans, not your ICE. It's the Institute of Certified Engineers. Nothing to do with deporting people. Being a member of the Institute of Certified Engineers is a pretty big deal. It opens up positions, and through that, very large responsibilities. Responsibilities that simply aren't there for somebody that's just finished their engineering apprenticeship, and that's a good thing. But that's because it takes years of extra hard work and service to become a mice. If you think it's wrong that there's this habit of employers Googling their potential employees' names before hiring them, then maybe this is why. When idiots are impressed by things that they don't understand, they put dangerous morons into well-paid positions of power. Don't just look at a set of initials after somebody's name and give them assumed power. Find out what those postnominals that they're using actually mean. Make sure there is proof. If they claim to be part of a chartered group or organisation, check that group's website and their registry list. If that person's name isn't on there, find out why. Find out why before you trust them with your money or your life. I was honestly wrong at the start, because the people willing to lie about this sort of thing in order to make money, they're not just stupid or simply bad. They are evil. They're chaos. They're entropy. They remove order from this world and seek to actively throw us out of balance and into chaos in order to satiate their greed. And whilst greed is not necessarily an evil thing, no, I often think that greed is kind of divinely good, but that's a philosophical discussion for a very different video. I have for a long time now thought that the truest nature and easiest way of understanding evil is that it is chaos. It's entropy. Chaos brings entropy, and entropy creates chaos. And if you want to see what the evil wrought by chaos looks like, then look no further than the sequence of events that started with Carl Stokes' lies, Kensington and Chelsea tenant management's ineptitude when hiring him, the sequence of events that led to a fire starting at 1 on the 14th of June 2017 on the 4th story of Grenfell Tower, a sequence of events that led to more than 200 people being made homeless, that led to 72 people dying, and a sequence of events that will not stop playing out and affecting the lives and the families of those affected by it for years yet to come. Thank you for watching this, loungers. If a pro is ever offended by you requesting their credentials, maybe they're hiding something. If they're ever purposefully using postnominals to mislead or trick you, such as having fuckloads that all require checking, or like Sinus just calling themselves a doctor when they really shouldn't be using that label the way they are. Or maybe they're just lying scum. As simple as that. I may have joked about calling myself a professional this and that and the other in this video, but I'm not actually gonna fucking do it now, am I? I'm not. I at least have some semblance of a moral compass. It's not that hard. I'm not going to make an education website, call myself a professional advocate or an educator about something and brag about how I want to start a non-profit and be a professional, because honestly, you'd have to be pretty damn scummy to try and make money from people that way. Links in the description, Twitter, Insta, there's a free Discord for you to join, come chat, hang out, and a PayPal for sending me money to show appreciation, because I'm a professional. And if you do that, and you're in the Discord, then let me know. I'll change your name color and stuff in there. You'll go from lounging to a lounger. Pretty cool. And I've done a video with Evangelina Skov that will be live like now, most likely. So go check that out. And there's one on her channel as well. Whoa. Cool. And yeah, I'm sorry that one was kind of dark, but they can't always be funny now, can they? Peace.